is a place for people who are deconstructing their faith or questioning their faith, or have already deconstructed their faith and just want a place to talk about it. So yeah, welcome. If you're watching this on the replay, you should be able to, there's a setting to see the comments that come up. So once a few more people come in, I'll be responding to the comments. And so there should be a way for you to see that. Hi, Bailey. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. I'm gonna see if I can fuss with the setting already. Let's see if that works. Okay. That way we don't have to wait for the wild comments to show up. I'll just get ahead of them now. My last couple TikTok lives, I feel like I've had a lot more aggressive people coming in. I'm not totally sure why. But to anyone new, hi, welcome. I'm Sarah. Yeah, exactly, Charles. We're not gonna mess with it tonight. I'm not sure how much it affects, I don't know how many people see the live or not. So, yeah, I'm not in the mood for terrible comments anyway. So we'll skip those. Hi, SM. I usually try and like truncate everyone's name to a nickname, but I'm trying to think like SM is a little hard to say. I hope you guys are doing well. Hi, Minnie. Good, it's going fine. It's nice that there's only like friendly people here in the comments. Yay. Let's see, for anyone who's new. Yeah, exactly, Josiah. No cowboy hat for me. Hi, Joey. Thanks, Charles. Yeah, for anyone new, hey, I'm Sarah. This is a place for people who are deconstructing, questioning their faith, and just want a place to talk about it. I talk about hell a lot. Like that was definitely a big deal for me in my own deconstruction. But we don't have to talk about hell if we don't, we can talk about other things too. Hey, Dr. Joe. Yeah, I just went, sub only right away. I don't know, I was not in the mood to deal with. I feel like the comments on YouTube can be so out of pocket, I guess. Yeah. Thoughts on Christians that don't think Christianity is a blood magic religion. It's one of those things where you are used to the thing that you're used to, right? And it doesn't seem weird because it's your thing. I remember having, when I was in college and still a very devoted Christian, I had two Mormon missionaries, two LDS missionaries, come knocking on my door. And so, like, many evangelicals would at the time, I was like, great, I'm gonna witness to these, Mormons, and they were like, oh great, I'm gonna witness to you, and we were trying to witness to each other. But in the course of that conversation, it was so interesting that like they would say these things. I was like, gosh, that's so strange and that's so weird, and why do you believe that? But really, it was no stranger than what I believed. We just we get used to our own brand of weird. Hi, Xavier. Welcome. I know, Dr. Joe. Yeah. I, and it was one of those conversations too where it was like, oh, I think they are deceived and they think I am deceived. And we just sort of went around in a circle. Hi, Anna. Well, I mean, yeah, kinda, Joey. But only the one. Well, no, very rarely. Hi, John. Hey, Em. Hello, hello. Well, that's fair, Joey. Hi, Jamie. Man, I should just start with having it followers only to begin with every time. It's so lovely. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, John. But yay, I'm excited for you. That'll be great. Maybe a new place, new people. Jim says, no matter how much they use the term buffet Christian to demean other denominations, the fact is that every denomination picks and chooses as much as any other. Yeah, I mean, I think it's such an incorrect statement to say the Bible is clear, and from an outsider's, yeah, it's all these different interpretations without anything to measure them against. Matthew, hi. Do you know where the Trinity idea originated? Was that an early church father idea or did it come around later? I don't know. So yeah, if anybody knows, I think it was in the first couple hundred years of the religion, but that's as much as I know. Yeah. I don't know. If Justin ends up popping in, I'm sure he'll know. Well, welcome back, Matthew. There is not a big issue that it is clear on. Heaven, hell, salvation, works, forgiveness, repentance. Yeah, I agree. So many times, when I bring up that Christians don't agree, I always have Christians saying, no, we agree on all the big stuff. It's just the tiny details we don't agree on. But I agree with you, Dr. Joe. Oh, the crowns is something that YouTube is doing. So I think it's like the people that make the most comments, I think, or I don't know if it has to do with like liking the live as well, but it like ranks the top 3 commenters. John says, I went to a protest on Saturday and even saw some pastors there, which actually made me realize that Christianity isn't like as evil as I thought. There are certainly Christians that were at protests. There are certainly Christians who are very concerned about, immigrants and lack of justice and, the treatment of LGBTQ people and women. And so it is yeah, I mean, there certainly are Christians who do those things. Hi, Sheila. Hey, Nancy. Brad, I'm not sure I follow. You mean like, was it supposed to be like an intervention or yeah, I'm not sure I understand. Oh, I'm sorry, Brad. That absolutely sucks. Yeah. Hey, skeptics. Do you believe in any supernatural phenomena? I don't. No. Yeah, so no, like, I don't know, ghosts or spirits or anything. Yeah, I'm sure that was horrible to witness, Brad. Yeah, it's interesting the idea, like how much I think as humans we want to believe in magic, and that comes in all kinds of things. It's not unique to religion. You know, it's the same with, I don't know, astrology or manifesting. You know, we want so badly to be able to control the things we can't control. And you know, I get it. I mean, I have definitely been in like really difficult situations, and I wanted basically something magic to make it all better, you know, and but it all sort of ends up being kind of the same thing of just, you know, sometimes you get lucky and sometimes things work out, but yeah, I think we want a magic formula or a recipe or a list of what to do to make things okay. William says the concept of the Trinity, the Christian doctrine of three equal persons, developed gradually over several centuries with the First Council of Nicaea. Oh, thanks, William. Jamie says everything Christian is true unless there's evidence to prove otherwise, in which case it was poetic or still correct if you reinterpret it in a way that makes sense. Apologists. Well, sure, Sheila. Yeah, that too. uh, Yeah, I find apologetics to be incredibly frustrating. And, you know, one thing I agree with Justin on this. I know Justin has said this before too, that apologetics really is for Christians to convince other Christians that the religion they already believe in makes sense. But apologetics are not very effective for people who don't believe. Well, that's interesting. Josiah says it's about climbing the social status within the group. Hey Victor. So I guess my username is a bit of a misnomer. I'm an agnostic atheist, and I haven't believed in God since 2009. To be fair, I didn't really think through my username all that much when I came up with it. Uh, Is your conversation tonight about being a Christian and losing your faith and returning back to Christianity? I am not returning back to Christianity. I mean, people who are kind of anywhere in that process are certainly welcome. But I have remained um, an agnostic atheist for a long time. Oh, that's cool, Josiah. Hi, Minute. Oh, Skeptic 2009 for you as well? Twins. Nice. So would you agree there's a higher being or energy we can't explain, or do you not believe such? I don't think so. That being said, I am an agnostic atheist, meaning that I don't think we can ever really know for sure. So while I don't see enough evidence to believe in a higher power, I mean, that doesn't mean there isn't one. There very well could be one. I just don't have enough evidence to believe in one. Oh, well, thank you so much for the super chat, Minutemen. Minute says, the gospel according to Jefferson's Starship. Sarah, no time is a good time for goodbyes. This is the gospel of Doug. Praise and uplift. It's perfect. It's beautiful. I love it. Rational says, good evening. Have we covered the origins of hell in the context of Christianity? I don't think we've talked about the origins of hell tonight. Yeah, Doug and Sharon. Hi, Spark. It's good to see you. I'm so glad you came. That's so strange. So James subscribed to me, followed me, just so he could come on my live and tell me that no one wants to hear that? Why? John says, is hell biblical? I know it's mentioned in the New Testament a dozen times, but not the Old Testament, but JWs have a different way of interpreting it. Yeah, actually, there's someone on my TikTok who's a Jehovah's Witness who talks to me a lot about hell, and I know they have a very different interpretation. There are little pieces that you can kind of put together to create a picture of hell, but it isn't like a clear, concise description. It's sort of like there's some poetic imagery that people are assuming is about hell. So it's not like I don't know, it's not like it's cut and dry. Oh, well, that's awesome, Sheila. Sheila says, had a 2-hour chat with my Jehovah's Witness buddies yesterday and used a bunch of stuff I've learned with your community. So thank you. Ah, wonderful. Nice, Charles. Brad says, in Norse mythology, hell is a goddess and a word for the underworld, more or less like purgatory. I think it was a stolen concept, like much of the Bible. Yeah, and I know certainly in the Old Testament, there really isn't much mention of an afterlife at all. So it's, certainly not a clear concept. USA, I have an FAQ playlist on my page that gives you like the whole backstory of why I don't believe anymore. Nice, Sheila. Hi, JK. Yeah, rational, that was my impression as well, that Sheol was more like the grave, like dying and that being it. What is your opinion on the fact that we have conscious, allowing us to feel, think, and act, which is the only thing separating us from other living thing that we know of? I don't think that's true, though. I mean, you don't think animals are conscious and they can think or make decisions? If you there are these great videos where people who have a dog, they fall asleep they pretend to fall asleep with cheese in their hand, and they're kind of like lying there, and they set up a camera to catch their dog, and you watch the dog kind of come up and like look around and think, should I take the cheese? Like, should I not? I mean, they're definitely deciding, so I don't think that those things are unique to humans. Oh, Justin's on TikTok right now? Oh. Umayar says, yeah, plenty of animals that predict future states, plan for things, have empathy and justice. Josiah says, my cultural anthropology textbook says the one thing that the human species does different than other mammals is our way of sexuality and the ethics with it. That's interesting. I mean, which part of that is supposed to be unique to humans? Victor says, I believe animals only have a subconscious. They can feel and think, but not proactive or controllable. Well, I think we have evidence against that. Again, like you can literally watch, if you have a dog, watch them consider, should I obey or not? Like once you've taught them commands, they you can see like they're deciding, should I do the thing my owner taught me to do or something else that I want to do? Band up, I have no idea what you're talking about. Hi, Winter. What's UCC? Oh, gotcha, Josiah. Well, we do know that there are mammals that like mate for life and have, sort of permanent partners. Band up, you're just listing books. Do you have something you actually want to say, or you just want to list books? Oh, okay, United Church of Christ. Got it. Mal Josia says, new here. I know you don't believe in him, but hypothetically, if you passed away tonight and met with Jesus at the gates of heaven, what would your first sentence to him be? Why? So many why questions. Why would you create humans that you weren't happy with? Why did you remain hidden? Why would you create a system in which you couldn't forgive us unless you died, so that you found a loophole in your own rules that you created? Why would you create hell? Why not communicate clearly to us so we can actually make an informed decision? A lot of why questions. Josiah says that and sexuality was the only thing that seemed to be unique. Hi, Denise. I mean, we also see not just heterosexual relationships in animals, but homosexual relationships too. Rational says, Stephen Fry's answer, bone cancer in children. What's up with that? Or what's that about? Yeah, I think that's a great first question. Jesse says, he has communicated very clearly, claiming to be wise, they became fools. So saying that anyone who has a different interpretation of the Bible is a fool is a great way for you to feel better about yourself, like to elevate yourself, that you are one of God's special ones. But the thing is, if God communicated clearly, then Christians would not be disagreeing with each other about what God's word says. So regardless of the conclusions, if it was clear, then Christians would all agree on what it's trying to say, and they don't. Did you attend therapy? I did. I would highly recommend therapy to anybody who, I know not everyone has access to it, but if you do, I would definitely recommend it. Bailey says, my sister volunteers at a hospital for children, and she's always so sad to see them so sick and wonders why God does that to kids or allows it. Yeah. I know that the sort of cliche Christian answer is free will and sin, and somehow everything bad is our fault and nothing bad is God's fault, but it's just not a good answer. And again, when you have little kids who have terrible illnesses, that kid doesn't deserve that. They haven't done anything evil. You're good, Marshall. Well, thank you for the super chat, Skeptics. Skeptic says, the Christian God's biggest failure, 35,000 denominations. Yeah, it is wild that Christians don't all agree with each other about what their book says. Mike says, order and design. A natural world as complex and organized as ours demands an intelligent mind. So the problem with that argument, well, there's several problems with that argument, but one of the problems with that argument, Mike, is if you are saying this complex thing, the more complex and intricate it is, the more it requires a designer, Well, you have to keep carrying that logic to your designer. Is your designer really complex? How did your complex designer exist without someone designing them? And so if it's possible that a designer could just exist, just be there, just because, well, I think the same is true of the universe. Sport says, in turn, the kids spend life with God in heaven. Are you making an argument that it's good that God allows kids to be sick and die? Jesse, my answer to all of what? JK says, why do we need to see evil to appreciate good? Why not something neutral to contrast with that? Yeah, the idea that there has to be evil in order for us to understand good, I also think is a poor argument. Because that would mean that evil has to exist for God to exist. And he couldn't exist all on his own. And I don't think Christians really believe that. It was whose choice writing? Ben, I don't know 1 Corinthians 10:13 off the top of my head. Hi, Seth. Aaron says, so it's either it all came from nothing, God created it, it's been here infinity. None of these make sense to me. What do you think about it? Yeah, I think something has just always been here. I don't have a good explanation for why. Like, why is there something rather than nothing? And I don't know. If God didn't care about us, then why would he let us have the chance to go to heaven? If God cared about us, there would be no chance for any of his creatures to suffer for eternity. Suffering infinitely, never-ending suffering, is the most evil thing I can think of. Ya says, rather than writing a book, it would make more sense that a God would just make the knowledge of him intrinsic so that nothing would be misconstrued, as there are so many different religions on earth. Yeah, and I don't know why he wouldn't just come on down and hang out with us, you know? Appear regularly, speak audibly, allow us to ask a question and get a direct answer from God. I mean, we have so many questions and misunderstandings because when we have a question, you have to either listen to the thoughts in your head, listen to another human or read a book. But God could just directly answer if he wanted to. This is such a strange comment. WA says, it's not about there being a need for evil, it's about free will. If kids didn't die, if there weren't natural disasters, then it would be pretty pointless for God or whoever to create a world. What? If terrible things don't happen, it's pointless to create a world? I am not following that logic. Keith says, our time on earth is only momentary. It's written to suffer with our God so we may be eternally with our Savior in the next life, where we will have new bodies without suffering, pain, and tears. So what that allows you to do, if you think this life is just really brief and our suffering really doesn't matter, it allows you to diminish other people's suffering. It makes you less motivated to help other people, because, hey, we're all just gonna die pretty soon anyway, and what really matters is the next life, and everything's gonna be great in the next life. But this idea that everything's gonna be great and perfect in heaven is a conflicting idea with free will. Is there free will in heaven? Is heaven this perfect place where there's no sin and no sadness and no suffering? How is that going to work if there's also free will? Are you able to make choices in heaven, or do you more become like a worship robot? Bump says, so you believe God should have created a perfect world with no problems, pain, and suffering? I think pain and suffering is completely unnecessary. Yeah, you can have challenge without suffering, right? Like, we love challenges. We could learn and grow and solve puzzles and solve challenges and figure out new solutions to things without suffering. You don't have to have suffering to do those things. Wow, it's amazing that people take the time to follow me just to come on and insult me. Like, it's wild. Why do you care that much? If you don't like my life, why bother? It kind of blows my mind, honestly. Jonathan says, it was supposed to be created without suffering, but humans made the bad choice. So, but God knew that all, right? Unless you think God was surprised by what happened in the Garden of Eden. And again, God, if you think God creates everything and is all powerful and designed everything, it was God's choice to make Adam and Eve's sin have this huge implication, right? I mean, when Adam and Eve sinned, God could have said, hey, that was wrong. Here's why it's wrong. I'm giving you this temporary consequence. And then they could have continued on with their relationship. But instead, God decided that the consequence of their sin was going to be to curse all of humans for the next few thousand years. That that's on God, that part of it. D says, you don't look well. Are you okay? So listen, I gotta be honest with you guys. Figuring out like how like lighting makes a huge difference in how someone looks. I never have enough lights. And deciding, am I gonna like have a filter or not? Also something I go back and forth with, because if I put a filter on, I don't get comments like that, but then I feel kind of weird about it. Like I should just have my face on here. So if I look tired or ill, that's just how my face is. This is just my face with no filter. Yes, exactly, Rational. I do have a human face with imperfections. Yeah, JK says, if Adam and Eve did not know evil at first, how would they know disobeying God would be evil? Yeah. Like God is purposefully withholding the knowledge of good and evil and then punishing them when they do something wrong, but they don't know what good and evil are. WA, my whole channel is in support of people who have deconstructed. Like, I'm not trying to convert Christians. But also, you're welcome to disagree with me. I'm not criticizing people for disagreeing with me. I'm criticizing people for coming on here and making like gross insults. That's a completely different thing. Yeah, Michael, they were told not to eat the fruit, but again, how would they even know that disobedience was wrong? We know that because we know what good and evil are, right? But they didn't have the knowledge of good and evil. And furthermore, how would they even know what a lie was? How would they know the concept of being lied to? SM says, suffering makes sense as an evolutionary mechanism to encourage survival. It makes no sense for an all-loving being to create a world that would support suffering. Indeed. I agree with you. That's how Satan deceives it. Right. Jonathan says, the tree of knowledge of good and evil didn't make them suddenly understand right and wrong. It made them try to define it for themselves apart from God. That's not biblical. No, they suddenly knew right from wrong. They suddenly hid because they were ashamed. Thanks, Diogenes. I appreciate it. The easiest way to get a hold of me is through my TikTok. I have the same handle at Leaving Faith over on TikTok, and I'm usually pretty good about checking my DMs over there. Hi, William. Fart asks, what's something you believed in the Bible that you now feel embarrassed that you believed? Oh, what a good question. Hmm. I mean, I used to really think that most of the Old Testament was literal. I was never a young earth creationist, but I did think that there was some kind of flood. Um, and I think, though, what makes me cringe looking back is not the stories that I believed, but the amount of times God was cruel and I excused it. You know, I found a way to justify it. Um, that I think is the cringiest thing. Malgosia says, I've personally grown from suffering, gotten stronger, can handle tougher situations. So, yeah, we can grow from suffering, although I think we can also grow just by being challenged. So, challenge can happen without suffering. And suffering, yes, we can totally get stronger after the suffering is over. Absolutely. And also, sometimes the suffering is too much and we are weaker after it and not stronger. Bailey says, didn't the Bible say their eyes were opened after they ate? Why would a good and loving God want us to have our eyes closed? Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was that God didn't want them to have knowledge of good and evil, which is weird. Like, the whole thing is weird. What's the difference between a challenge and suffering? So doing a hard Sudoku puzzle is challenging. You know, a challenge might be working really hard to build a house. Suffering is pain. Like, suffering is when you lose a loved one, when you break your arm, you know, like, that is suffering. Yeah, absurdist. The whole thing is weird. Jamie says, for me, it was believing that the Gospels were firsthand eyewitness testimony. You know what really bugs me personally is that I thought that too. Yep, like eyewitness testimony. And it didn't even dawn on me that, like, well, wait a minute. Like, Jesus's birth is recorded in there. Some of Jesus's childhood is recorded in there. Moments where Jesus was alone are recorded in there. Like, what do you mean it's all eyewitness testimony? Yeah, absolutely. Sheila says, losing your family in a tornado is unnecessary suffering. Indeed, it is. The one says, why do bad things happen to good people? I've been in law enforcement for 3 years and it's ruining my faith. I'm really sorry to hear that. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks to watch bad things happen to good, kind people. You know, and I certainly don't have a good answer for it. I think in some ways it's actually a little more comforting to me that it is sometimes random and that, like, sometimes bad things happen and it's not anybody's fault. You know, accidents happen, natural disasters happen, cancer happens, and you didn't do anything to deserve it. You didn't do anything wrong. There's not a lesson you have to learn from it. It just sucks. And that honestly is helpful for me, so that I don't have to, like, try and figure out what a silver lining is in a terrible situation. Dwight says, I grew up in the church. I um, can't call myself ex-Christian. I don't know what I believe. I can say losing most of my faith has been the most lost and painful, and only has made my life suffer more. Hi, Dwight. Welcome. I can tell you that you're not alone in that feeling. There's the organization Recovering from Religion that you might find really helpful. They have a lot of resources, support groups. They have links to secular therapists. The other thing I will tell you is you're not alone in that it sucks. And those of us who have been through it, we can reassure you that it does get easier. I'm so sorry that you're suffering so much right now. It does get better, but I hope you can take advantage of some of those resources. USA says Job is a good book. It's a good book if you want to stop being a Christian. Mike says, bad things happen to good, kind people. Remember, if this world hates you, it hated Jesus first. Really sounds like God has completely lost control. And your statement doesn't explain why bad things would happen to good people. Just that they do, and you should be cool with it because bad things happen to Jesus too. What? James says, if you can't grow as a person through suffering, are you even a real person? So, I said earlier, James, you can grow from suffering. It is absolutely possible. However, there are some kinds of suffering that leave you weaker than you were before. Terrible tragedies, awful situations, leave you spending years trying to recover from them. And that's a very human experience too. Oh, thank you, Cindy. Hey, Crystal. If your experience of suffering in the church, well, I didn't suffer in the church. Grew you to help and support people who also left the church. Wasn't your suffering ultimately a good thing? So we're kind of having two conversations here, like the world as it is and making the best of it. And if there's an all-powerful God, the world that God decided to create. So, yeah, I mean, we have bad things happen and we absolutely can grow from them. And our terrible experiences, we can use those to help other people. But that is us making the best of the world as it is. However, if you're a God and you're starting from scratch, there doesn't have to be suffering. That's unnecessary. Hey, apostate sisters, good to see you. Do you believe that Jesus existed and died 20, 25 years ago or not at all? So I think it's reasonable that Jesus probably was a human who existed. I don't think that he resurrected. Ya says, I feel that the randomness in the universe makes life feel all the more special, but that if this is a carefully constructed world by a god, then it raises so many questions. Yeah. That's a good way to put it too. Fart sack, every time I say your name, I'm gonna laugh. Says, stress and suffering are different. Running 10 miles is stress. Walking uphill is stress. That makes you stronger. Cancer isn't stress, it's suffering. Mega says, all right, so basically, I don't know if you read the Bible, but no matter how good of a person you are, if you don't have faith in Jesus, you won't go to heaven. Yeah, what a wild system, huh? Whether you go to heaven or hell, it's not based at all on your character, how you treat people. It's not about accountability, about justice. It's just whether or not you believe the right thing. I find that to be a strange system. You're welcome. Have a good night too. How does it make sense that if you don't believe, you talk about it as if it existed? So sometimes I am talking about what I used to believe, and sometimes I'm engaging with a believer, doing an internal critique of their beliefs. Atheist says that's Paul's idea of Christianity, not Jesus. Minuteman says, am I the only one who thinks checkers should have their own live? Yeah, I'm surprised she hasn't made her way in here yet. Checkers, what are you doing? I'd like to hear one Christian belief that hurts the world. Believing that homosexuality is a sin hurts the world. Yeah, also slavery. That hurt the world for sure. Oh, thank you, Seth. How would that hurt the world? My response? How does believing homosexuality is a sin hurt the world? Really? If you grow up believing that intrinsically who you are is bad and evil, and if you believe that, you spend your entire life hating yourself, thinking that you are not good, it leads to significant increases in suicide rates. It leads to huge increases in what's the word I'm looking for? Like harassment, but a bigger word than harassment. What's the word? Like, that hurts people. People have been beaten to death because other people thought being homosexual was a sin. Like that belief has literally killed people. Hi, Afro. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Afro Fire says, praise Doug. Yeah, indeed. Brad says, as a homosexual myself, it is a life of suffering and overwhelming inability to trust others because of how you've been treated. People are cruel. I have been mugged, beaten, and left for dead. So that belief that hurts people. Yeah, the Laramie Project for sure. Yeah, says the idea of condemning people to eternal torment and making that idea seem just is a harmful one. Yeah, the idea that it's okay that people suffer infinitely, I think really has a negative effect on your ability to experience empathy. Money, no, I don't think objective morality exists. And no, that doesn't mean I don't think there's no morality. Everyone's morality is subjective, including if you get it from a god. So putting others down their Christian faith is okay. Mike, am I putting you down? You asked a question and I'm trying to answer it to the best of my ability. I'm not putting you down. Yeah, Jamie says, if objective morality existed, it would supersede God too. Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's, it would have to also be outside of God as well. Well, thanks, Tech Medic. I appreciate it. Yeah, Minutemen, apparently it is. It's, yeah. Well, listen, guys, I am going to call it a day. I really appreciate you all hanging out and chatting. I go live most evenings on TikTok. So if you if you use TikTok, I am over there a lot. Oh, the bunnies! Where are the bunnies? Here, I'll take you guys on a quick field trip. Let's see. Let's see if I can find a bunny for us. She might have put herself to bed. Oh, hi, Checkers. Oh, she kicked out her litter box a little bit, so she made a little bit of a mess. One sec. Let's see. Hi. You want to say hi to all the internet peoples? Why did you kick over your litter box? You silly bunny. You doing okay? Oh, that's a good buzz. That's a good buzz. Yeah, that's a good bunny. There's Checkers. Yeah, the bunny cam. Afro Fire, thank you so much for the super chat. I don't know what GG's means though. Well, and thank you guys too for hanging out and for the great conversation. And yeah, if you want to follow up, you can come find me over on TikTok, same handle over there. Um, and go bug Justin about putting up we have a new episode for our Bible study. So it'll be up soon whenever he gets done editing. All right, have a good night, everybody.